Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here today. And well, first things first, thanks a lot for coming. I know there are a lot fun things going on at the conference, and I really appreciate your decision coming and sort of spending this time with me. And this talk today, it's not going to be about the best product management cases, practices, frameworks. It's a talk to why smart PMs keep making terrible decisions that take time, resources, that ruin their conviction and career prospects, and why those decisions look or seemed rational at the time. And throughout my career, I hired PMs, like not a lot, but quite a few. And some of them were successful, some of them were not really successful, but I firmly believe that most PMs who struggle to drive impact, they're not incompetent, right? They're experienced, they're smart, they're resourceful, they're well-intentioned, and they just apply all the right product management playbooks, but at the wrong time, at the wrong stage, and in the wrong environment. And at Wise, where I used to lead a 20 billion USD scope, I hired and built one of the most profitable teams in the organization. And the average tenure of a PM at Wise was around 18 months. Once again, 18 months is like a year and a half. Realistically, you can't achieve much in 18 months, regardless of what they're telling you. And it's not because Wise was really bad at hiring PMs. Wise was exceptional at hiring PMs. It's because succeeding as a product management is extremely context dependent. It's extremely context dependent. And yet we talked about product management as a discipline as if there was a one-size-fits-all solution or playbook that we could just employ and magically build great products. I moved from corporate world to startup, to growth stage company, to post-IPO fintech, just to come back to a startup again. And every time I brought skills and frameworks that were theoretically correct, they kind of worked well in my previous company, but they were simply no longer useful in my new context. So I was like, yeah, I know how to do stuff, but well, what kind of stuff? Anyway, I believe that PMs don't fail because they don't know best practices. They fail because they overtrust these practices and because they believe that what took them here will take you there as well. And one day, your company requires a get shit done kind of startup scrappy PM, and another day it's a complete new thing where they want you to produce some sort of a McKinsey level strategy deck that they will present at the board. Those two things are completely different, and it's fine if you don't feel comfortable doing both. So it's always the same rule. It's always the same title, but it's always different rules based on the stage of the company you are in. Let's try to break it down. At startup, early stage, correctness in product management, it doesn't really matter. You can learn all the fancy frameworks, you can read all the books, you can have Inspired and Lean Startup and Hooked at your bookshelf, but it doesn't really matter because the only thing that matters at this stage is that how fast you can learn about the domain, because building a product it's not equal to understanding the problem really well and understanding your customer pain points really well. At growth, that's a completely different thing. You have so much data, it explodes. It's like everywhere. We're experiencing it at Matema right now, where we just have so much data to analyze and have no one who can actually analyze it. And what I keep hearing is that, hey, let's do some experiment. And to me, if someone is asking me if I want to do an experiment, it means that we have no direction. We don't really know what we want to build. We have no internal conviction. We just want to experiment because experiments feel safe. And at scale, what becomes your bottleneck really is alignment. It's not customer insight. So you have all the right people in place. You have all the right data in place. You have the best people on earth to solve this particular problem, but you're just super cautious of aligning everyone about what you want to build instead of actually building stuff. And yes, these stages can coexist in the same companies. And yes, PMs at the same company could be at different stages. Their products could be at different stages. And let's try to dig deeper into these stages and kind of the mistakes that PMs make. Does it make sense so far? Like, are you guys excited to sort of learn about it? Yeah, show me a sign. That was really shy, but I hope I'm gonna get a bigger round in the end. Startup product management scenes. And the first startup product management scene is professionalism. I'm not sure if you guys been to this place, but you kind of go to a new company and you were hired by a CEO, whoever, and you're their first PM. And what you want to do is look professional. You want to make sure that they don't look at you like a weirdo who just wants to build stuff. You want to sort of write a nice presentation. You want to apply a nice framework to prioritize stuff. And the biggest mistake, I think, is that as opposed to learning fast about the domain, the customer, and the problem, you try to apply the learnings from your previous place on how the processes work back there when you clearly have no clue about the problem. And I think that at the early stage, the biggest risk your company has, it's not the quality of product work, it's just the fact itself that you might be solving a wrong thing for a wrong customer. And that's the first thing that you need to clarify as a PM. And typical mistakes that startups make at this stage are the following. Over-rely on the vision, build roadmaps before traction, invest in analytics setup, future-proof architecture. Well, I'm hearing this from my engineers all the time. Some of them are here, and they're always like, oh, it doesn't scale. We did a wrong choice at some point. Yes, we did, but that allowed us to scale. Align the org before shipping stuff, and optimize for internal stakeholders. All of this feels smart, and I don't think that there's someone in the room that can really argue that bulletproof architecture is not important or having a good analytics stack is not important. It is, and I can't argue with that, but those are the problems from a different stage. And at this point, correctness and building in the right way is just a distraction. Your speed of learning is your only currency. Why it keeps on happening? It's because we do a bit of a called product management. We kind of try to copy what's worked in different organizations. We try to copy what works at Google. We try to copy what works at Meta, at Spotify, etc. And we read all the right books and we listen to all the right podcasts. But again, just to reiterate on what I've said before, just knowing how to build the right products is not the same as knowing what problem you are solving and solving it well. Those are two completely different things. So I do believe that at the startup stage, at the early stage, you need to make sure that you're focusing on knowing who your customers are and being 100% super convicted that have a bulletproof conviction that in the end of the day, you're solving what matters to them. Cool. Bad decisions I personally made at startups. I wanted to make it a bit spicy so I don't pretend like I'm smart and I know it all, because I kind of keep making these mistakes all over and over again. And this presentation itself is a bit of my reflection on product as a career. And here, the first thing is that early in my career, when I was at Magpo, and those of you who are from Ukraine, you might have heard about this company, I really trusted organizational conviction more than I trusted first principles. I worked with a founder who's probably one of the most knowledgeable people when it comes to Mac software, and I blindly believed that his vision is just right. The way of building products he sort of promotes is right. And I remember we launched this new product, a desktop product, that had no real customer interface. So imagine you install an app and nothing happens. You're like, okay, like what's here? And we just were so confident that in the end of the day, that's what the customers wanted. And that's what the apps of the future should have looked like, that I didn't really challenge that. And what happened is that customers were just lost. Customers were like, okay, what is that? Like, I've just installed something that clearly looks like a scam. What should I do here? And we had to just stop everything, redo discovery after lunch, challenge from the first principles what we built, do a normal take on the whatever interface we had to build. And it's worked. It's worked really well after. But really, the mistake I made in the beginning is that I just decided not to challenge, and I decided to accept someone authority over me. So if there's one thing you can learn from this part is that make sure you have your own conviction. Second thing, in my own company at Matema.me, which is a marketplace for math tutoring, we started to grow super well in the beginning. We were growing so rapidly that I was like, oh, wow, actually, this is now a real thing. It's not a pet project. And instead of figuring out how to make sure we are building something customers really wanted, because clearly we had product market fit, I was listening to people who were generating the most of cash, sales. So sales would tell me, oh, you need to build us this tool that would allow us to speed up the matching process, or you need to build a CRM system that would allow us to track the leads activity at different stages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we spent a ton of time building this, and we spent all our engineering resource on building this. Guess what's happened after? Nothing. Like, it had absolutely zero impact on any of the commercial metrics that we built, or we didn't manage to track them. Anyways, the point here is that build for customers, not for your internal stakeholders, because customers in the end will pay you. Takeaway from here: startup PMs should stop pretending they know it all too early. That's fine, not knowing stuff. It's a new thing. Don't do product management theater. Shoot for customers and talk to your users. Make sure you talk to your users more than you talk to your internal stakeholders. The last thing, but probably the most important, make sure you have your own conviction in what you are building. Cool. Does it make sense so far? Yeah? Oh, that was better. I love that. Thank you. Growth PM thing. So, well, your company is no longer surviving. We're not fighting for survival. What we are fighting here really is indecision. Like, no one, like, the company is growing. What's next, right? And I think this is where experimentation programs. Who of you have heard about the experimentation programs? That's like, I think, a real biz. That's really dangerous. And PMs, especially in my networks, they call it a booking.com disease, where A/B testing really tries to substitute a real strategy. And it's a bit of a cargo code as well. So Booking.com, obviously, super successful company. I don't know what their valuation is, a massive one probably. And at some point, their product management practices become sort of very famous by promoting a rapid autonomous experimentation where the gains of small experimentations would compound, and this compound effect would eventually drive the top line of the company towards right and top corner. However, what's happened after is that a lot of companies simply decided is that if you do as many experiments as possible at any given part of your product, somehow it's going to lead to growth. And growth stage PMs, they love experiments because experiments, they delay commitment. It means you can just throw spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks. Let's test it often really matters. We don't really know what to bet on, but, well, our founders told us to run experiments, so probably we should. And what happens after is very clear. Oh, cool. Common growth PM mistakes. A/B testing toward no direction. I'm not sure if you guys been there, but it happens all the time at the growth stage. Local optimization with no real top-line impact happens all the time. Or we increase click-through rate from this button to that button by whatever, 50%. No one really cares. Revenue's flat. Your founder is not getting a new Porsche. Like, no one is happy, really. And data will tell us it's like an escape hatch for a lot of PMs. Like, we kind of over-rely on data, waiting for it to magically guide our decisions. The problem here is that it's really hard to fight this behavior because you can't really fight data, right? Metrics just feel so objective, and almost no PMs gets fired for running experiments. It's a bit like hiring McKinsey to do your strategy work. You know it needs to be done. You kind of want to pay for that, and you know you're not going to be fired for that. But you can't A/B test your way out not knowing where you are going. That's the whole point. I'm not against experimentation programs in general. What I'm against is experimenting for the sake of experimenting. And here's a list of some nice bad decisions I made at the growth stage. So I was at Preply, still one of the favorite places I used to work for. And I was their first growth PM. And I ran the experiments like religiously. I was like, we experiment on everything. We wouldn't ship a small footer change in the bottom of the website without running an A/B test on that. One quarter, my team that consisted of 2 Spanish engineers and 1 incredible Australian tech lead shipped 60 A/B tests. Was incredible. And the problem is that my area had no commercial leverage. Like, I was building somewhere where we did not expect a commercial impact, yet I was experimenting, being measured by the commercial metrics. So I was really, really busy and really, really irrelevant at the same time. What actually drove impact when I was there is conviction. Change in the ways that the way we build customers was simply wrong. It took us around 13 iterations to build a new experience of billing that eventually drove growth. And it wouldn't have survived our typical A/B testing framework. It's just because we had to experiment so much in order to get one things right. And the point here is that sometimes we know what we need to work on. Sometimes we have conviction on what kind of change the company needs to deliver or what problem a company needs to solve. But we just can't ship it because we have quarterly cycles or we have this A/B testing frameworks that we need to employ. And we use the same approach in different parts of the org where it doesn't make sense. And the point here is that I want to make really is that experiments, they're just tools. And strategy is choosing where to apply them or not. I remember when I joined Wise and I wanted to run my first A/B test after staying at Properly for a few years. They just laughed at me. No one really does A/B tests there. So I think the problem with experimentation is that we also take them for granted as something that all the companies do. But in reality, it's not the case. And takeaway here is very simple. Over-reliance on experimentation does not create strategy. Build your conviction first. That's the main point. Growth requires choose what to disappoint people with. And you need to commit to direction. Your direction could be wrong. Your direction could be right. But you need to make sure there's one. And you can then A/B test your way towards it. But make sure you say no to many things. Otherwise, it's a spaghetti throwing exercise. Right, scale PM scenes. So scale is when your company is really big, right? Scale is when you're not fighting for the survival. You have all the resources in place. You have the best people, the best processes, the best structure. And here what starts to be happening is that at this stage, PMs, they stop fearing failure, as in company failure. They know this company is here to stay. And they start fearing internal disagreement. They just start to fear fights. And alignment at this stage, and when I'm saying alignment, I mean organizational alignment, it quietly replaces decisions. And it happens in a very slow way. It happens in a very well-prepared, nicely rehearsed, highly paid, silent way. Here, the main point I'm trying to make is that writing a strategy at this stage, doing alignment at this stage, it does not equal progress. It's just busy work. And I've spent quite a bit of time trying to understand how to illustrate this point that I'm trying to make here. And the only quote I came up with came from a friend of mine who is now a PM at Meta, a relatively senior one. And he said something like, I don't want to build product anymore. I want to do strategy work. This sentence sort of explains a lot, right? What does strategy mean? Strategy, it's not impact, it's not progress. And I think if you find yourself being trapped in this situation, kind of try to reflect on what's going on. Because guess what's going to happen is it's not going to lead you to your next promotion. Cool. So I've spent quite a bit of time at the scale stage companies as well, mostly at Wise, where I led multiple teams around multiple regions, and where at some point I managed to build a really, really profitable unit. And I made a lot of terrible decisions, mostly because I was over-reliant on my past experience as a PM. And the first problem that I had at Wise is that I do think that Wise is incredible in giving PM's autonomy, where you are free to decide whatever to work on. And they genuinely empower a team to do things better for the customers. However, the dark side is that sometimes as a PM, you don't really know where your mandate ends. Like, what are we solving for in the end? Are we trying here to build a bank? Or are we going to build a crypto wallet? I was personally involved into a crypto wallet project at Wise. Guess what? No one has seen crypto wallet at Wise, even though we spent like a lot of time working on it. Stocks, are we building stocks here is kind of aligned with financial sort of niche of where Wise tries to play. So the point I'm making here is that when you don't have a clear mandate as a PM, and when you don't have a clear mandate to your organization, they start to sort of go in different directions. We experiencing this a lot with Matema. So what we sell is basically we sell mass tutoring to families with kids. And all the time, whenever things go south, whenever our growth stales, our team keeps repeating the same thing. Oh, we need to open new subjects. Oh, we need to launch group lessons. Oh, we need to build an app like Duolingo so it scales faster. So it's always like a quick lookout for a shortcut when there's no shortcut. And the point here is that when everything is allowed, you spend as a PM building weeks to build your conviction just to learn that the problem you were trying to build your conviction towards is out of scope. It's happened to me so many times at the big organization, so make sure you understand your mandate really well and your scope really well. You guess about everything and nothing gets down, and that's not the place where you want to find yourself. Another problem that I had at Wise was trying to apply the same strategies I had at Preply to succeed as a PM at a bigger organization. So there's a real problem I tried to sort of reflect on while preparing this deck, and it's about improving card acceptance rate for Wise. So I'm not sure how many of you had experience working with payments. I assume a lot, but for those of you who don't know that, there's always this problem on how your payment processor accepts card payments. And we had it as well. So at some point we realized that we had a really poor conversion rate in Europe, so we decided to sort of do something about it. And as a well-trained growth PM, the first thing I started doing is when a customer paying was failing, I would proactively build an experience that would nudge them to make the next pay-in, or would nudge them to repeat the transaction with a different pay-in level. And guess what? It didn't work, obviously, because the real problem was that the customer would try to pay, a bank would tell them that we are fraud, and we had to fight perceiving Wise as a fraud problem, not a customer can't pay because it's not convenient problem. And the solution was not around UI. The solution was not around running another A/B test or another experience. The solution was simply refining our fraud policy, reaching out to banks with low conversion rate and trying to convince them that we are legit, we are not fraud. But that's a more complex solution. And I don't think that at the org like Preply, for instance, it would land too well because it had nothing to do with running experiments. So what actually drove impact when I was at Wise? So at some point, I've inherited this scope, which was USD payments to bank accounts outside of the US, a massive scope mostly used by businesses to pay to Chinese suppliers. And my goal was to increase retention using this part of the product. And obviously, it's just a pipe that moves money from one place to another. But I spent a quarter researching what attributes of this pipe impact customer behavior. And what I realized is that there were certain characteristics such as speed of payment that was impacting retention massively. But guess what? Speed of payment is an incredibly hard metric to move. It's like it might take you quarters and quarters to move that. And I had to build a rock, like a solid proof conviction, in order to even come with that idea to my stakeholders and tell them, hey, I'm going to spend the next 2 quarters improving the speed of payments of our transactions to China, because it looked like a waste of resource. No one really believed that it's possible. And we built a very sophisticated payment routine. We built like a system that would autonomously calculate how to send the payment from bank A to bank B around the world using multiple correspondent banks. And it's worked really well in the end. But it's worked only because as a PM, I had a chance to build my conviction, and my conviction sort of drove me to convincing my stakeholders that this change makes sense. And I think more importantly, psychologically, I felt very safe to do that because I knew that, hey, it looks legit. I really believe it's going to work, so probably they should believe as well. And a takeaway from this part is pretty straightforward as well. I think that at scale, your indecision is the most expensive feature. So make sure that you fight that. Invest into building your personal conviction. That's the single most important thing that you could kind of drive your success with, or drive the organizational success with. Because if you don't have your personal conviction, you will not have energy or power to fight this endless chain of committees, I don't know, like plannings, etc., etc. So make sure you have that. And mostly in this type of organization, surface level experimentation, it doesn't really take you anywhere. So make sure you are focused on hard problems that look impossible to solve, but then somehow find your way into solving them. Cool. So let's then try to come up with a few ideas on how to make fewer bad decisions as a PM. I think first things first is that make sure you adapt your product management style to a stage of your company. If you're a startup, make sure you optimize for the speed of learning. If you're at the growth stage, make sure that you pick the direction and committed to it. And then if you're at scaled, make sure that you are not trying to prioritize for consensus. Consensus is like the worst thing. Make sure you prioritize for your conviction and for your team's conviction. Great PMs, they are not consistent. Great PMs are very situationally aware. They understand what framework or what approach or what best practice you need to apply in order to drive your organization to wherever it wants to get. Make sure that you don't fall into a trap of blindly applying another thing you've learned from a Lenny's podcast, let's say. Cool. Don't ask, is this a good PM practice? Always ask, if this practice is good at this stage of the company. Because most PM failures, they are very polite, very well structured, and they're very beautifully documented. Your job is not to build the product in the best way possible. No one cares about your strategy of how you build product. It is to build a product that actually serves customers well. And sometimes it's different things. Cool. And some of you obviously lead PMs, and some of you obviously lead multiple PMs or even product management organizations. And I think here what's important is that you sort of empower them to do their best work, because it's always easy to sort of be not happy with your org performance, but have you done everything to enable them to do their best work? And here it's very simple. Make sure you give them autonomy. Make sure you evaluate only based on real impact, and make sure you promote only based on real impact. That's all. Like, you don't need to do anything else. And if there's one thing I strongly advise you to stop doing, it's please stop forcing them into doing product management theater. Stop forcing them into applying whatever framework you learned about. It will most probably not drive any business impact. That's me. Thanks a lot for coming today.